Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of Ask Muntu. Every particular month, on the last Friday of that particular month, we have a conversation with retired General Mugisha Muntu, who is a founding member of the Alliance for National Transformation, former presidential candidate of that particular political party. And every particular last Friday of the month, we have a conversation with him to find out what he thinks about how the country is moving forward, and of course, what are some of the advices or what is some of the knowledge that he's sharing with various Ugandans, especially on some of the problems that we continue to have in this particular country. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga, and on behalf of the Alliance for National Transformation, I'm here to moderate this particular conversation. And of course, I'm not alone. General Mugisha Muntu is already in studio. I'll be connecting with him, or I'll be introducing to him later on. Just to paint a picture of what is happening in the country as we speak today. And as we talk right now, the political roadmap continues to unfold as we speak here in Uganda. The political parties have already started to gear up for nominations and for the political or electoral process here in Kampala, Uganda. Political parties like the Democratic Alliance was launched yesterday, but also the National Resistance Movement as well. Nomination forms have already been picked by people who actually want to be, who are vying for different positions therein. I saw that the president of the country, Yoweri Museveni, will be picking his particular nomination forms tomorrow. And the Alliance for National Transformation is also in that particular contestation. We're going to ask about how the delegates conference is going on right there, and of course how different they approaching the political game this particular electoral cycle. And of course, in the news, we have that Uganda has got a challenge here and there of rebels. That is something that we got a couple of months ago. Intelligence was there, and of course we had some strained relationships between the German government and the Ugandan government. But as we speak this week, a new phenomenon has started to occur, that investigations are going on, and it is suspected, or it is alleged, that they may have fabricated these particular incidents. We saw a bomb attack that was there on the 3rd of June. That was on the Martyrs' Day. A lady passed on, in fact, and a gentleman who was riding a bike. And we also saw a lady who was gunned down. The UPDF likes to use the word neutralized, on allegations that she was working with some rebel forces. But as we speak today, news confirmed that over six officers have been arrested and by the UPDF, and investigations are going on. And maybe also in other news, the Balalo question continues to linger in the hearts and minds of Ugandans, as the eviction that was, in fact, the notice or an order, executive order that was made by the president that all Balalo should vacate the Acholi region. Some say that they own land there that was procured in the right way, but also there is another new phenomenon that this is communal land. So how better can this particular issue be addressed? But also the other thing is, if someone actually procured land and they are Ugandan, how do you evict them from the land that they procured legally, from what they call willing buyer, willing seller? I want to get the mind of General Muntu on these particular issues in this edition of Ask Muntu. As I told you, my name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga, and you can also join the conversation. I am also on Twitter, so my people on Twitter, you're most welcome as well, or what they call X now. So you can send in your messages. I'll be reading them as we continue with the conversation. Good evening once again, and allow me welcome the founding member of the Alliance for National Transformation, ANT, also a former CDF of this country. In fact, he did that at the age of 29, very young man, and he is in record to be one of the youngest CDFs this country has got. But also, he is a visionary of this country and a senior citizen. On my behalf, sir, and on behalf of my audience, it's always a privilege, and you're most welcome to Ask Muntu.
My pleasure, Edgar. Thank you for hosting me. Good evening, dear viewers.
How are you in this country, Uganda?
We're moving towards another electoral process. Every electoral process comes with its challenges. The consistency has been the mismanagement of it. I think that's what you can trace throughout all these elections we've had, the last 3, 4, 5 elections. Because we have got a regime which is not ready to relinquish power. It doesn't play fair. Okay. So that we're going to see that kind of situation unfold as we go through this electoral process. It won't be anything new. My hope is that it won't be worse than what it has been before. I don't see anywhere when Genome 7 runs in an electoral process how it can be fair and fair.
Okay. Yeah. But then we are gearing up for an election, so why are we going in such an election with all the factors that you have hinted on? In fact, you've not exhausted them. Then what are we preparing for as a country?
The struggle is a permanent and continuous process. There's always contention between different forces. There are people who always want to take advantage of any situation in a selfish way, even when they are attempting to be or when they are already in the public employ. But there are also people who always struggle on the side of right to ensure that they establish mechanisms for good governance, wherever they are, to ensure that governance is in favor of a community or society, a country, wherever they are, if it's in an organization, for those who belong to that organization. Yes. So that contention between two different forces has been there since creation. We are experiencing it here as we've experienced it in the last 60 years. We have not managed, unfortunately, to build a critical mass of leaders within our political environment who, when they're in the public employ, or when they're attempting to be in the public employ, whose driving motive is service to the people. That hasn't happened yet. So that struggle has continued until that happens.
Yes.
So in spite of the challenges we see, we have to keep on until we build that kind of people. And that's why everybody who believes that should not give up, in spite of whatever challenges we see. We have to keep organizing in whatever vehicles we are in, like those of us who are in political parties. But even those who are not necessarily active in political parties, wherever they are, those who are in civil society, those who are in cultural institutions, religious institutions, any institution that serves mankind in whichever way must ensure that they work day and night to influence the nature of politics, because politics is at the center of our lives. Wherever else you are, politics affects you. Actually, it is at the core of how society is managed, how are services delivered, how are resources applied, because the resources come from us, wherever anybody is. Whether they're in a cultural institution, whether they're in a church or a mosque, they are farmers, they are business people, they are professionals, wherever you are, you pay taxes.
Yes.
Some direct, others indirect. There's nobody who doesn't pay indirect taxes, for example, because everything you buy, there's VAT. There's VAT in it. There are taxes which you pay almost on a daily basis. So governance is about how is that money used. Is it used in a transparent way? Is it allotted to doing things which deliver services to you? Roads, energy infrastructure, educational systems, health systems, transportation, food, communications, jobs. Is money being applied in those areas? If no, it's a concern to everybody, wherever they are. So politics is at the center of our lives.
But do you know we have a feeling in this country that we are being helped I think
that's an upside down.
Yes, it feels like when you receive us, for example, a road, then
Yes.
someone will patronize you, say, and you say, he constructed a road for us. It feels like they are helping you.
Yes, you're right.
How
Because
did we get to such a
They didn't
point?
get money from their pockets. Whoever makes a road,
Exactly.
whoever brings water to you.
How did you get that
it's
beggarly
not,
mindset?
It's not education. Constant, continuous sensitization, civic education. You know what gives us the right as citizens, whether you are in politics or not, is the taxes you pay. That's what gives you the right to question any leader at any level.
Yes, sir.
No leader has got a right to utilize your money in whatever way they want. They must account for that. That's at the core of politics. That's why, for example, we go into elections.
Yes, please.
It's the leader whom you put into a position or who got into that position by whatever means, questioned in how they are utilizing your taxes.
Okay.
That's the whole question. Normally, when in a normal situation, when a government has not put resources or utilized resources to the satisfaction of the citizens, citizens have got a right to say, we are terminating your services, we are sending a different person or a different party, when there's a normal situation. When the situation is abnormal and there's a regime which wants to stay regardless of whether the citizens are satisfied or not, that gives the citizens the right to ensure that they recapture that right to question anybody who is in power.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where the contention is. And that's why we must remain engaged and not give up.
Okay. You're speaking about engagement, and as we enter that conversation, I'll request my producer to just work on my sound a bit. I'm getting a bit of backlash from here. So, producer, please work on this sound. Jeno, how are you preparing as the Alliance for National Transformation for the 2026 general elections? We'll start from there.
At this point, as a party, we're in a stage where we are sending information. We've sent information. First, it's online. Two, we are sending it to our coordinators all around the country. For those who want to run on the ticket of Alliance for National Transformation, to express interest. It's a form for declaration of intent, whatever positions people want to run on.
Yes, sir.
And that exercise is going to be running throughout the whole of July. And then we will get feedback, get all the forms, and determine where there's only one candidate in a position. It is always easy, because that person will go through unopposed. Where there is more than one, we have had guidelines which are going to be disseminated by our Party Electoral Commission to all the district coordinators and lower level coordinators, where we have them on how to process candidates where we don't have a single candidate. And from that point on, there are a number of other things we are going to be doing right now. We are in the process of doing resource mobilization. We're in the process of putting together a conference which could happen latest August.
The delegates conference, you mean?
The one which will also deal with the way forward. Also, through which they will process, the party will process the manifesto, the party manifesto. We're in the process of putting that together as well. Simultaneously, we are doing outreach programs with a number of interest groups to see those we can collaborate with throughout this whole political process, those who would give us support. And then we ready ourselves to the ground once nominations are done. and conduct the campaigns from, I think it's supposed to be from September until January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how different are you? Because I'm looking at the organization that you did in 2021.
Yes.
And it's literally the same thing.
Yes.
How different are you entering this political process? Or let me ask,
Yes.
what do you wish to achieve from this election cycle?
We keep sending the message. We are what we intend to do, indicating our capabilities. So showing that the only way out of this mess that we've been in from 62 years, and in the last 62 years, we've been in a situation where we have had so many changes, but the direction of politics remained the same.
Yes, sir.
And the core message of Alliance for National Transformation is unless we have a team of leaders in a vehicle like the one we are building, Alliance for National Transformation, that is value-driven. And that's why we go all over we've been going throughout the whole country in the last 4 years, trying to attract men and women who not only talk about, but who believe, who have the convictions. If they talk about transparency, to have it in practice. When we talk about justice, to be just. When we talk about fairness, to be fair. When you talk about accountability, to operate in a mindset mode where they know that the moment a party is in power, that you must be accountable for how you deal with citizens, for how you manage national resources, for how you should be treated yourselves if you do anything similar to the person who is not even in power. That therefore you must all be equal before the law. That you must create an environment where there are equal opportunities for all. That if there is a job opportunity, it must be open to everybody. And access to it must be on merit. Not because someone knows someone in government or has an uncle or an aunt or a sister or whatever. So we know that the only way the politics of this country can change is if you have a team of leaders, men and women, who are convinced, who are operating out of conviction, who don't talk about things because we talk about the same things basically in politics, but will be able to walk the talk. That's where contention has always been. And for us to ensure that we keep pumping up that message over and over until the people who believe in it come together, coalesce around that.
Not to for fear of gaslighting you, from the time this political party was born, it has been focusing on building structures. That's what you are using, reaching out to the masses. Even after the 21 elections, you have been there, traveling all over the country, sensitizing it. What are some of the fruits you are to show and for that?
And we won't stop. We will continue.
What is
it's not only building structures.
For the last 7 years, can you track for me and show me the impact you have created through these structural consultations, engagements, and forums you have created? What is the fruit to see there?
The taste of the pudding is in the eating. When the country starts seeing the leaders who come through A&T, mostly the young people, because many of us are known because of our previous engagement.
Yes, sir.
But there are many young people who are being groomed within A&T. And those are the fruits of that effort we are talking about. And when that comes to be, when people start seeing how they act, how they behave.
I know them personally. These young people are different. They are a different breed of leaders.
I have no doubt about that. That's why we never panic when people, shout and they say all kinds of things. Because we are creating a product that we know is going to be a solution to the problems of this country. We have got young people who are out there. They really basically don't have a lot of resources themselves. They are under pressure from all directions. The politics of this country is money. And it is quite interesting because I get calls from many all over the country who are under so much pressure because many parties want to recruit them. They just want to sow what they didn't, to reap what they didn't sow. We spend time building these young people. But the good thing is that they are resilient. And I get a sense that those who've been trying to recruit them and failing must themselves be surprised because they don't budge. And the country will get to a point where they read that. They'll be able to see the products of what NT is able to produce, you know? And it's going to be a continuous process. The good thing is when a product is good, as it will be seen, and mostly in areas where in the next elections we believe we will have many leaders going through the Parliament, LC5, LC3, councillors. And therefore, when our leaders become more visible than so far what they have been, the highest leader we've had so far is LC5 Terego, who's doing quite well. Those who are on the ground in Terego know how responsible, how mature, how skilled in managing administrative issues of the district, the transparency in which resources of the districts are being used. They know how the LC5 chairman Saka is, and we want to replicate that in every place that we take. So Ugandans need to really wake up. We've been going through almost turmoil for 60 years plus in politics. Then many get confused, but they need to really walk themselves out of that confusion to understand that whatever you sow is what you reap. It's a law of nature. If you want sweet fruit, you grow a tree that is going to give you sweet fruit.
Yes.
You grow a mango, you grow an orange. But if you plant a lemon tree, as of, you know, you will reap a lemon. A lemon is not sweet, it is bitter. So there's absolutely no reason why you should go to a lemon tree, which you know produces bitter fruit, and your intention is to reap sweet fruit. Yes. It doesn't make sense. So we as Ugandans therefore need to recognize that the character of the leaders we put into positions matters a lot. If you put a person whose character is shady, in their history, they have gone through institutions, and they have been, you know, irresponsible in managing resources of an institution, whether it's a school, whether it is a hospital, whether it is a circle, whatever it is. And then that very person crosses over into politics, and you elect them.
They're the ones we actually want.
Why on earth do you think that they are going to be different in managing district resources or sub-county resources? Why do people not recognize that? Because the nature of politics is going to be rooted in the character of the majority of the leaders who are elected.
Yes.
And basically that's the message we keep pushing. And that's why we keep on trying to attract men and women whose character is consistent with the values that we want to see happen. You want transparency. People cry out and say, we want to know how our taxes are used, how this contract was given out, how much money was spent on this. But who's managing that project? Under which, at what level is it? If it is LC3, LC5, if it is at the parliamentary level or even executive. The determination of how that project is going to be done is going to be dependent on the people who are managing it. And therefore, their character matters a lot.
Exactly.
So the population needs to really wake up. That's the crux of the matter. Character of leaders is so critical. It is the central question. But yeah, them people, talk about this, talk about that. It doesn't matter. These people who are there lost direction. I was with them. I could see where they were losing direction. We put up our voices. We tried to wage an internal struggle. Unfortunately, our forces were manipulated and were dispersed. We've been reorganizing on the outside. I recognize that there are also those within still who think they can change things from within. I have no problem with that. If they can organize themselves and become a formidable force, and we link up with them from the outside, we can change the direction of politics in this country.
Okay.
But everybody must reach that conclusion that until the character of the leaders is purposefully by the voters, that the leaders who are pushed into positions of responsibility are leaders who are going to stand with them. Come rain, come shine. Leaders who have character. Leaders who care about communities, who care about the country. Before that happens, politics will be mismanaged, national resources will be misused, and the people should tighten their belts and continue crying because there won't be any other way out other than that. And they must be participants in changing that. They should not expect that someone is going to fall from Mars or Venus or the moon or wherever and come here and do it for them.
I think they're hearing, and it's on this note that I request you send in your messages, questions, queries. We're streaming live at the Alliance for National Transformation YouTube, but we're also at the Alternative Uganda and at Digitalk TV. All those YouTube channels, you will be able to find us there. We're still having this Ask Muntu on this 27th day of June 2025. My name is Edgar Matthew Karohanga. We're looking at the roadmap of the Alliance for National Transformation, looking at some of the deliverables that they are promising Ugandans. And General is talking about the quality of leaders that we elect as a people. And it's on that note that I ask, in the last election, you did not get any leader or MP, Member of Parliament, in the August House. And you said you got an LC5 leader. Yeah. How are you going to improve this statistic? What are we going to do to make sure that the Alliance for National Transformation has more leaders and for example, members of parliament, because these people are the ones who dictate how the law is made, how budgets are passed, so they have a lot of influence. How are you going to go against the national resistance movement that every election cycle brings a lot of members of parliament, and which some people have dubbed has become a rubber stamp parliament or a walking stick for Mr. Museveni? How are you going to improve that statistic, sir?
One, 2021, we were just still very young. We had just launched our party, and hardly 1 year we engaged into the electoral process.
Yes.
We are better prepared now than then. Our message, we have had 4 years of disseminating our message. I think it has sunk deeper and wider than it was in 2021. So we are better prepared now than in 2021, without doubt.
Okay. Yeah. There is a certain phenomenon that the appeal of the Alliance for National Transformation is rather boring. Some people find you or your political party calm, not charismatic enough to take power, and that's why many people have said you can find General having very good ideas, but he cannot make a very good president. What do you think about the modus operandi, the style of politics you are bringing? One would say it would better work in a dispensation like the United States, not an African country like this.
I mean, what do the people want? I think they want better governance. Governance is rooted in ideas. Governance is not rooted in excitement.
Why are they attracted to your good ideas?
I have no understanding of that. Basically, maybe they want us to change our ways and try to excite them. We won't change our ways. We are not going to try to excite anybody. There are other areas of excitement that people can.
Aren't you marketing a good product for a wrong market?
People need to be able to allot their time. Mm-hmm. You can't be excited 24/7. There are times when you are in your workstation doing whatever you are doing. If you are in administration, you are doing administration. If you are, a farmer, you are there farming. When you're in business, you are running your business. There are times when you have take meals. There are times when you are resting. There are also times when you want to relax. You want to be entertained. And there are natural activities that are exciting. So when you feel you want to be entertained, you can go and attend a football match. You can watch it on TV. You can go to a theater. You can go to a nightclub and dance and feel good. But there are also times when you have to be serious, mostly when you are dealing with matters of life and death. Politics is a matter of life or death. It's at the core of your existence. You can have someone who is sick. Maybe you don't have insurance and you don't have money with you. You can easily lose that relative or that close person because you don't have money.
Yes.
That's a matter of life or death. So ordinarily, even if you don't have money, that person will not die if there are good health services. For example, in the last manifesto of ANT, and I believe it will be in there now, would want to see a functional national health insurance system for Ugandans. We want to see that work. What is exciting about that? Nothing. But it's an issue of life or death. So you can actually achieve both. You can go and get excited by going and watching football, but at the same time, ensure that there are people who understand the issues of life or death, managing a country, to ensure that there are good health services, good educational services, that there's provision of jobs. Why on earth would you need them to be entertaining? Why would they want us to excite people? What for? Because to ensure that there's a national health insurance system, why would you have to switch into a mode of excitement to put that in place? So the people need to ask themselves those tough questions. We prepare ourselves, we build a vehicle that will put in place service delivery systems for people to be healthy, to be wealthy, and then in the time slot when they want to be entertained, to go into entertainment places. They should not try to shift entertainment places into the areas where life or death decisions have to be made.
Okay.
I mean, you can imagine now we have got 45 million people. We are increasing in numbers. We are one of the fastest growing populations in the world.
Yes.
By the time you are in your 50s, we are going to be around 100 million.
Yes.
We are deeply sunk in a national debt, and it's increasing. We have got politics that is so deeply influenced by corruption. Now, for any group to manage that, you don't need people who are exciting or excited. You need people who are disciplined, who are focused, who are knowledgeable, who are skilled, to sit and see how do we move the country from the mess in which it is and put it on track, to put in place a foundation of good governance, to put in place a disciplined team that will manage resources, to ensure that in this process of offering services to a fast-growing population, that all these services are viable. Why would you need people who are excited?
Okay, General.
To be able to deal with those kinds of challenges.
So you're saying it's issues. We should look at issues, not charisma.
The people. It is the people who have a problem. They want to be excited in an area which should have no excitement. Because politics is about issues of life or death. As we speak, look at a country like Sudan.
Yes.
They're in tatters. They're fighting. People are dying. Why on earth would people therefore not understand that when politics is mismanaged, the outcomes of it will cause death? Why would people want us to be either excited or exciting?
Words of General Gregory Mugisha Muntu. General, let's look at the elections that are already going on. There are youth elections that are going on, special interest groups, and the national resistance movement that you dub to be corrupt and one would say incompetent. They have swept over 90% of these elections. My question to you is not just for the Alliance for National Transformation, but as the alternative governments or the opposition, where are you on ground?
You know, all electoral colleges, that's what happens. Whether it is in youth, whether it is in people with disabilities, whether it is in the workers. That's always the trend. Because there's a corrupt system. There's a very untransparent system. And then also have a weak society. Many of the people always rush to the side of the movement because they believe that they are going to be rigged into those positions. That's where the problem is. But when it comes to general election, things are different.
No, but General, I want you to check what you're saying.
Yes.
You're trying to say that because these people are voting, are mature people with a sane mind.
Yes.
Why are you belittling their choice?
Weak. Because you see, leaders build people. Leadership is about building people. All human beings have a dual existence of character. There's an area of weakness, there's an area of strength. What leaders normally are supposed to do is to look at where people are strong and strengthen them further. Where they are weak, to build strength where they are weak. By doing that, you build a strong society because it is composed of strong citizens. Now, all dictatorships, by design, deliberately weaken the areas of strength in those people who are strong, and then utilize the weakness in the people who already are weak or are struggling to be strong to weaken them further for purpose of control. And that's why you find societies, even those societies where they had highly educated people, those that had attained high levels of industrial growth, country like Germany, Second World War, Nazi, for the German society to be misled. That's what dictatorships do. They were asking themselves, how on earth could we do this?
Yeah, because if you were asking, how could they have supported the Nazi
All
like that?
All human beings are like that. When they are effectively and systematically manipulated, all authoritarian regimes, all dictatorships, the modern ones, understand the psychology of people. So they apply methods, some subtle, others open. There are those which are subtle, but which are communicated constantly, which weaken people where they are strong, and even those who are weak to be manipulated for purposes of control. And that's why many times they use methods that entice. For example, money. Money is one of the biggest corrupting elements in controlling society. And then fear. So they know which buttons to push on which individual, on which community. Undermine their interest. Push them into a corner. Put them in a state of desperation. And then also show them how they could easily be helped out of that kind of situation. Absolutely. And in the process, you change the thinking of society and you make people bow down to you. That's where leadership comes in. Because since creation, even in such situation, there are men and women who remain standing. And you can read in history. Now those are men and women who remain standing, become the pillars of hope for a new growth out of that desperate situation, for a society to be shifted from where it would be back onto track. So it's a struggle. We recognize that. We can see how they have made our people almost become enslaved in their thinking. We've also seen leaders who are breaking down on a daily basis. But we also know that that is a temporary situation. The dynamics of change, one, they will bring out the people who are firm in spite of the challenges that the society is facing at that point in time. And that they become fulcrums around which resistance can be built. And therefore, they become formidable and can become the source of overwhelming the undesired situation in which that society finds itself. That's where we are at now.
Okay.
That's why many people who recognize that have to ensure that they keep encouraging people who are strong, who are firm, who are resilient to keep coming up. Because as they say, when a shepherd is taken out, the sheep will scatter.
Of course.
So we cannot allow the sheep to scatter. There must be people who keep gathering them, building hope, showing them, how to become resilient, and congregating them so that we keep building the numbers until the necessary change.
Why I say that is you remind me of the statement that Mr. Museveni was making about in one of those districts and saying, you vote properly, you should vote properly. Then you bring me leaders who are not good. But as we work on the Twitter here...
But even in areas which are, almost 80% movement, the services are no different from areas where people voted opposition.
We shall come to that point. I have a couple of people here who are sending in some of their messages on X as you work on this. There is... General, this is Kato Akleo. He says, General, talk about the National Council for Higher Education verification of Brigadier General Ashande. I'll be talking about that later. Why is the Alliance for National Transformation is very comfortable? Because we are seeing convenience of the party's activities against incumbent government. Do you think the party needs to be intentional in taking power? We aren't seeing any protests, but comfort. This is what I was saying. Some people believe you're too comfortable. And I think this is what...
We have no problem with those who believe that that's the way to go. We've never stood in the way of anybody who wants to take a different direction. We don't blame anybody who takes whatever direction they take. My hope is that those who want to see change shouldn't blame us either. Whichever is to work will work. And whichever works will become self-evident. Maybe it's at that time when they should say, oh, this worked, this didn't work. We're all still in the process.
Okay. So as we conclude this particular issue then, how better are you going to be, especially in this particular election? What should your viewer or supporter expect from you as we leave this particular issue?
First, people who want positive change, people who want to see change that is meaningful, people who want to see a new team of leaders that will walk the talk, people who want to see equality before the law, justice in governance, equal opportunities, democratic practices, transparent management of national resources. You know each other in every community. Encourage those who, when they believe in value-driven leadership, people who believe in those values, to get on the ticket of Alliance for National Transformation. Because we were not able to go all over the country as we would have desired because of limitation of resources.
Yes.
Now, where we went, we have coordinators. Where we have not been, there are people who believe in these values.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, now we can organize around those candidates on a countrywide scale.
Yes.
At the LC3 level, LC5 level, for chairpersons, for councillors, mayors of townships, of municipalities, of cities, and members of parliament. So that we continue this struggle until people who are driven by those beliefs are able to take power and therefore change the direction of politics in this country.
Thank you so much. I am still with General Gregory Mugisha Muntu, founding member and former president of the Alliance for National Transformation and also the CDF of the land. Jen, I think we can also talk about the question of Kato now. Let me repeat it for you. Kato Akleo, you are on X. Thank you so much for tuning in. You said, General, talk about the National Council for Higher Education with verification of Brigadier General Ashande's academic papers. Also talk about the rampant involvement of the military in our elective politics, especially in areas where incumbents are out of favor of the electorates. We'll start on that note. There is a lot of violence, especially in Lwemiyaga and Sembabule areas. Yeah. And in fact, yesterday, there is someone who passed on. One Sembusi was shot dead, 25-year-old. And Lwemiyaga Theodore MP, Lwemiyaga Theodore Sechikubo, the Lwemiyaga Member of Parliament, also got some injuries. I think a bullet passed through his fingers. And there is also another person who was injured. This is not the first time. In 2021, I remember, 6 people died in that particular area. What do you think about this new phenomenon of violence? But also, how did Brigadier General Ashande get this certification?
I have no understanding. I don't have details about that particular case. I really hope that
they equated his, because he doesn't have what they call formal education, they equated his military credentials, the courses he has done in the military, and according to the National Council for Higher Education, these qualifications tantamount, or they can be equated to some certificates of the education, for example, senior 6 and diplomas.
The council should be firm and fair and not allow themselves to be intimidated by any outside force. Either someone has got the authentic certification or not. If they don't, it doesn't matter who they are. They shouldn't give anybody that certification.
No, but at least you tell us from the knowledge you have, do those qualifications or
I don't have
the
a
courses
clue
you
as
do
to what courses he did. To be honest with you, there's no way I could know everybody in the army, even at that time. You know, and courses want one area of focus. We wouldn't be trying to find out where did this one get educated, you know, from, what courses did they do. We wouldn't, basically, except unless when they were going for training. And so I don't have details, and therefore there's no way I can give comment on an individual case. I cannot talk about the principle
of
issues. Yes.
Let's use you as an example, because you have been in the UPDF. If you did not have, for example, a degree or a diploma or a senior 6, with the experiences and some of the courses you have done there, could they tantamount, or can they be equated to a certificate?
You see, equivalence, what the council should have done all along is to make a list of what is equivalent to A level and put out so that it's public, so that everybody is able to interpret it for themselves. Why do they have to hide it? Well, I have never bothered to know what is equivalent, because I went through schools, you know, from primary to O level to HSC to university. So I've never bothered to find out the equivalence of A level. But when systems are compromised, that is bound to happen. You know, that is bound to happen. Everything can be here. I mean, laws are bent in broad daylight. Laws which even have more implications, more dire implications when they are manipulated. Now, what about equivalence? If they can change term limits, whose consequences we are now faced with. What about equivalence? Mostly if there are people high up there who want to influence that. But since both of them are running on the movement ticket, I suspect that they will go out there and see how to deal with it. Because even in the next constituency, Sembabule has had those problems, even in 2021.
Exactly.
There was violence.
Then how do we reduce that violence?
When the candidates, even in the other constituents of Sembabule, they also both movement. Incidentally, in the movement primaries, many people may not recall, there were more than 400 petitions that came out of the
primaries. Yes, true.
You know, that's why I get surprised when the population keeps on stuck behind the movement, because nobody is going to give you what they don't have. If you are not internally democratic, how on earth would they expect that they are going to give the country democracy? Because you have 400 plus petitions and they never dealt with. The sense I get is that the situation is going to be worse now than 2021 in the primaries of NRM. Let's watch. Let's wait and see.
Why do you say that?
I mean, the lack of transparency, the levels of manipulation, the culture within the organization is everybody's for himself.
But I saw Shatsi Musharuru letting the rest, leaving the rest for Sodo Kaguta in Zimbabwe.
Voluntarily, or she wanted to avoid what happened in 2021. I don't know.
We saw after consulting the president.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
That's a good culture, one would say.
I don't know. Why would that? I don't know. I cannot talk about specific cases, but I know that the internal electoral process of NRM is just simply a mess.
Okay.
But
yes, sir.
We are only 2 months away. So let's wait and see. But I have a feeling that there's going to be a bigger mess now than before.
But you know, I like to look at the system, the cause of why we're seeing this. One would say that shows the level of passion, support, and assurance these leaders have in the national resistance movement.
No. It is a reflection of how our society has been so broken and is literally on its knees. Because out of those people who are running on the movement ticket, because I meet quite a number of them, out of 10, those who believe in the movement, you can't get more than 2.
What?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they'll tell you that I ask many of them, say, I don't believe in what is going on, but this is the only way I can go through. So what does that mean? It's actually a frightening prospect.
Wow. We have 5 minutes to 8 p.m. We're into the first hour of this show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karohanga. I am still with General Mugisha Muntu, former president of the Alliance for National Transformation and former CDF of the land. I want us to delve our conversation onto the Balalo question. The Balalo eviction, in fact, is about or should be already in place, as the president already has released a couple of executive orders over that issue. One last year, and one has been even reiterated this year, early this year. Then there is also another order that the president put out. And the president is saying the Balalo should be evicted from the northern part of the country. And after this executive order, in fact, he actually says that there shall be forceful eviction if these people fail to leave these particular premises. Now, some of them have started to ferry their cattle from the different parts of Acholi, but some of them are staying and standing their ground, saying that the president is being unfair in this. First of all, they say they are Ugandans, and that is the first mandate. And second, the constitution of the land mandates that every Ugandan has the right to buy or procure land or property anywhere in this country. Why is it becoming difficult for the Balalo? And the other sentiment that people are reiterating is this a racial or tribal card that is being pulled on the Balalo, after saying that some of them have actually legally procured land there and have gotten what they call a negotiation, willing buyer, willing seller. But how then do you evict them without even compensation or without actual deliberations with them? Some of them have said they will not be leaving the northern part of the country. So I want to hear from you, General. How do you think the issue of the Balalo, and we're using the word Balalo, but these are Ugandans.
The basically Balalo means herds people.
Herds people, yes. Yeah. So how do you think this issue should be dealt with?
It's very unfortunate that the matter is being dealt with now during an electoral period. Because during elections, like now we're moving towards elections of 2025, 2026, elections create an atmosphere of emotions. The Bararo question in the north is a symptom of a larger problem of poor governance. Now, the unfortunate thing is that it has not been effectively dealt with in the last 4 years when we are not in an electoral cycle. Because we've had 4 years in which they could have sat down and, got data as to who belonged in which category, first and foremost. To create an environment, an atmosphere in which the people in Acholi land, government and representatives of the Bararo would have sat in an atmosphere where there is no manipulation, where there is no pressure of going into elections, and made decisions. And if those decisions were reached by consensus and all parties were satisfied, implement them. That did not happen. General Museveni knows what actually land means now and the north. Because he got wiped out in Uganda and he's trying to see, and the north largely used to belong to the opposition. Unfortunately, because the pressures we used to face, by that time I was in FDC, we had strongholds in West Nile, we had strongholds in Acholi, Lango, and Teso areas, east and north.
Yes.
Our push was to see how to convert the West and Buganda.
Yes.
And the population and leaders in the north and the east would be saying, push so that we can have conversion in central and in west, so that we can overwhelm the regime. Now, unfortunately, at a time when Uganda shifted, we had not consolidated the north. And NRM, General Museveni, has been pushing in how they can consolidate the north after losing Uganda. And the west hung in the balance.
Still his stronghold.
Hanging in the balance. I meet with people.
No, but the numbers say something different.
Whatever numbers, let me tell you, whatever numbers, engage with people one-on-one. They've got reasons why they vote General Museveni. But is it because of trust? Or is it because of fear? And also, to a large extent, emotional associations which happen with human beings. So the problem now is General Museveni wants to run with the hare and hunt with the hounds.
At the same time?
At the same time. My suspicion is that those statements he's giving now are political in nature, and they are for psychological reasons. My suspicion is that immediately after elections, it will be business as usual. Now, it seems to me that many people in the north, leaders and people, may be sucked in by this ruse or this enticement, so that in this situation they hang in with the movement, without knowing that the problem is not even the Bararo, the problem is at the center: bad governance. Where, for example, you have any citizen in any part of the country who breaks the law and they break it with impunity. Or you have someone who has got money and they muscle in on your land anywhere in this country, and they can take your land and you cannot have a recourse to justice in the courts of law. Even before you reach the courts of law at the level of investigation of police. Now, in Acholi land, it is happening on a mass scale. But in many other areas, there are so many cases of what is happening of the same nature, that if someone has got money, if someone has got influence in terms of having people in security services or people in government, they can literally come and occupy your land.
And procure or buy your land, because you say they have money.
Or even in cases of procurement, you can be, they can buy your land under duress. There are many people who sell land out of duress, out of fear. So to resolve that issue of the Bararo and anywhere else in the country in a fair, transparent way, you have to fix governance.
Okay, but why do you have
Otherwise-
that sentiment that the government is being political? Because you said that you use the word business as usual. Why do you think they are not being serious
Let's
about
wait.
it?
How many months are left? About 5 months. After that, I don't think you're going to hear about that question, and I don't think that it will have been finally resolved.
Because it won't.
Because they are simply trying to say, okay, we are going to deal with this question so that they don't get resistance politically in the north and lose the northern vote, the actual vote. That's what it is about. It's nothing else.
They are not saying we are trying. The words of Mr. Museveni is, I have given you this time to get out. If this time you fail to leave Acholi land, we are going to use force. So it's not
I believe even force will be used if they don't do that.
So aren't they solving the problem?
But after election, because now they don't want to lose that vote. And I can tell you they'll do everything to ensure that they effect that. But then the people in Acholi need to understand that even if that happens, it will be temporary. The country is being affected in all ways because of bad governance at the center. So to feel appeased by this action, and then you hang in with a regime which is going to cause more and more problems of this nature until a point when there could be an implosion which will affect all of us, regardless of wherever you are. People need to make decisions from critical analysis, not from appeasement. The thing has been going on for 4 years. So why is General Museveni being decisive now, 3 months from an election?
No, but he was already.
Yes, he has made those statements before. And the issue is that I don't think they have ever built consensus, and it is possible to have a consensus or a full understanding of all the three parties. That has never happened. Yeah. But land, I can tell you, this is not an issue only of Acholi land. There are problems all over the country. Land is an issue which is going to cause...
Who's bringing this problem?
It's a culture. Now, anybody who has money, anybody who has got backing of security services can literally do anything in this country in regard to land.
Let me first pause you there.
Yes.
You were here when you started what they call a privatization. You picked up privatization and said, when you have money, you do what you're supposed to do. You are allowed to procure land anywhere. So, Mika Ruhanga, is there a problem when I have made wealth to say I want to settle in Acholi, procure land there, and settle there? Is that a problem?
You see, when you have many people going into an area and utilizing land, but there are different categories. But there are those who go, for example, when you hear examples which are being quoted, you find someone with cows, but also armed.
I've heard of those stories.
That now contaminates the thinking of a community in which you are. Two, if you have cows that go and go through people's fields, destroy crops, and police can't touch you, courts can't touch you, what do you expect? That sense of injustice, that sense of impunity will influence that question, and you'll cease even to start looking at genuine cases. That's why the regime failed. They should have categorized right from the beginning, but also empowered police to act decisively. Someone, your cows go and destroy someone's property, someone's crops, and the police is decisive. 1, 2, 3, 4 cases. And everyone knows that these people are not above the law. To ensure that nobody is armed. How can you be armed grazing cows? Because the image, the picture. And that is also mixed up with the lack of many other things outside that, which influence people. For example, lack of opportunities. For someone knowing that I cannot go and access a job because I come from a wrong region. In politics, when there is nepotism, other people in other areas are going to feel aggrieved. And when people are aggrieved, you don't want to exacerbate that by adding on other problems.
I get what you're saying, but I've had one
in a normal society where systems are working, where there is justice, where there is fairness, where there is transparency in management of national resources, I can tell you an issue like that wouldn't be a question at all. Nothing. I
have had one legislator from that region bring words like, we the Wacholi are brave,
yes, and
you, the Balalo, are weak. You see that antagonism? So it's now starting to be owned. Now, yes, if all regions start to do that, yes, maybe you have a home in Buganda, yes, right? Yes. So if Buganda says we're not going to be selling to General Mugisha because he's Mugisha, yes, and if the East do the same,
yes,
where then does the country go?
That's what I'm saying. The issue is not Bararo. The issue is not who is saying what, where, in whatever region, whether in the West, whether in the East, whether in the North. The issue is governance. When you don't sort out governance, you're going to have many people attacking one another. Wow. Because they are aggrieved. Someone goes looking for a job, they cannot get it. And they see someone else getting that very job when they didn't have the same qualifications. That causes a grievance. And grievance causes emotions in people. And when there's no resolution of those grievances, the grievances and emotions keep building up. To a point where there can be an implosion. We have seen many problems, in countries, yes, sir, where people who have been living together without any problem. But when there are problems of governance, these people start looking at each other almost as enemies. This is not only here in Uganda, you see it all over the world. Okay. Race against race, religion against religion, ethnic group against ethnic group. Even within the same, let me tell you, if you go like in a district where people are homogeneous, it is one ethnic group. It is Banyankore, or it is Batoro, or it is Basoga, or it is Iteso, or it is Achori, it's Langi, or Rugbara. Only those, there is nobody else. If there is poor governance in that particular district, if it becomes a country, you'll have manifestation through different cleavages. It can now become a clan.
I've heard of
or it can become something else.
I have heard of a clan story in one of those institutions in the country, and one said that there is this place is not around Banyankole, it's about a certain a clan that I won't mention. But then, what do you make as you conclude?
Look at Somalia.
Yes.
They speak the same language, culturally the same, religious 99% Muslims. Exactly. But they've been fighting for this time, and their differences are on clans.
Exactly.
So the central issue is poor governance. This is nothing else.
So you say at the end of the day, let's go have a consensus among all these parties.
Like now, the people in Achoiland should not feel appeased by this.
Really?
They should divert from the central question of governance. Let's deal with the issue of governance.
Okay.
Yes. Because, you see, the way they have been, for example, trying now to break down the leaders of the force of change. There, it's deliberate, it's conscious, it's systematic by the regime to try and overwhelm everybody there, so that people start feeling that, unless you are on the side of the movement, you can't move forward. To break down people to a point where they bow to your will.
This is intention. I thought it's just a problem we have as Africans.
It's deliberate. It's deliberate. This is being used. This is a tool which has been used since creation.
Wow.
And therefore, the leaders in those areas need to be very, very vigilant and to recognize that the problem is at the center. So don't be appeased and therefore let the center off the hook. Because until we resolve the issue at the center, problems are going to manifest in different ways.
Okay.
And we can keep on degenerating to a point where a country like this, you can find people basically at each other's necks.
57 tribes?
Absolutely, it has happened. There are many countries where that has happened.
Wow.
Look at Sudan.
As you
There
conclude.
are many ethnic groups in Sudan. You know, because initially, when North and South were still together,
Yeah.
the excuse was that, you know, these are different religious groups.
Yes.
The South is largely Christian.
Yes.
The North is largely Muslim.
Yes.
And they are also different kind of races.
Yes.
They are
Arabs
largely Arabs,
and the
Southern African ethnic groups.
Yes, sir.
So they separated. So what happened?
Even
Then
these
one
ones.
would, if that was the case, then the North would have been stable and the South would also have been stable.
I get you,
But
sir.
when the South broke off, you can see the problems which are happening within the same Christian group, within the same largely African groups.
Okay.
The North, largely Muslim, largely Arab. But they're fighting one another. They're killing one another.
Yes, sir.
So the issue is not ethnic, it is not religious, it is not
It's a
racial,
leadership
it is
issue.
governance.
Okay. General,
And
because
the
of time.
elite need to wake up these facts. Because the moment you use a wrong, you know, if you don't diagnose the symptoms right, you are going to apply wrong treatment. The patient can die.
General, only because of
So the
time.
diagnosis must be right.
Yes.
For you to give the most applicable treatment for the patient to get cured.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, General. I think they've picked a point there in. You paint a picture that is a leadership problem here. Thank you so much for sending in your messages. I see Apollo to Musime. You have sent a message on X. Musinguzi Derek, I'll also read your message. Robert Fibonacci on X, thank you so much. Continue sending in your messages. I'll be reading them as we continue with the program. Still in the issue of regions, Mr. Museveni and his family, in fact his wife to be particular, this year came out to apologize to Buganda. And they cited out some of the issues there. They said, we are sorry, we apologize. What do you make of Mr. Museveni's apology to Uganda first, but also to specifically Buganda? What do you think about that statement, or what happened then?
The act of apology is human, and it is not only therapeutic to those who apologize, but also relieves the pain and anxiety of those that would have been aggrieved. But the issue is the intent, the intention for the people who apologize, why they do apologize, and if it's genuine or an act of manipulation. And you can't easily know whether it is genuine or an act of manipulation until a period of time. Because you can't judge it based on what any human being says. I mean, all of us can say anything. You read it by the acts after that act. If you are repentant, that means that your actions will change. So we just have to watch what General Museveni does. If he changes in his actions, then we'll know that he was repentant.
Wow.
But if you repent, if you apologize, and then tomorrow you are crushing people.
But it's very seldom that Mr. Museveni
That
apologizes.
means that it
No,
wasn't.
it's seldom that
didn't-
Mr. Museveni apologizes. Don't you think this came from rather a better place?
We'll see out of his actions.
We see them
Because
by
if,
the
he,
fruits.
if, for example, he keeps on arresting these young people, for example, because if it was specifically in central Uganda, And many of these young people, for example, in Nup, the majority of them are from Buganda.
Yes.
So if we see them released or tried, and in a transparent way, if none of them is arrested further and you know, tortured, like a number of them whom we have seen on social media and on TVs, if that doesn't happen, then we know, okay, the apology was from the depth of his heart. But if he applies any more measures of repression, then know that it was just an act of manipulation.
Thank you so much. We are 20 minutes into the hour. General uses the words of the Holy Book. We shall see them by their fruits.
Absolutely.
Let's delve into another conversation of the rebel attacks that we have been having as a country. First of all, earlier on this year, in fact mid the first quarter of the year, Colonel Magezi, by then the acting director for information in the UPDF, confirmed that there were rebel cells in this country and said most of them are in the Kampala metropolitan region. That means Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono, Kampala metropolitan. And he also added that these rebel groups were supporters of the National Unity Platform. And he also reiterated that the German ambassador had a hand in there, which even culminated into the suspension of the military cooperations between Uganda and Germany. Recently, we've seen the president meet the German ambassador therein, but also recently, in the near past, we also saw some people being gunned down, especially a lady who was neutralized. That's the word they used in Kalerwe. But also earlier on, we had 2 people who were victims of a bomb blast on the 3rd of June as we are celebrating the Martyrs' Day in the country. So, as we're speaking right now, news that broke yesterday, in fact, a story, confirmed that there are some officers that are being investigated in the UPDF on allegations that they were fake bomb attacks or terror attacks. I want to listen in from the former CDF on the entire process, how it's playing out, and this issue of rebels, especially as we gear up for the 2026 general election.
I wouldn't want to make comments at this point in time. I think the matter needs deeper scrutiny. We'll have to conduct more observation and apply more scrutiny to be able to make conclusions. And the worst thing is also happening towards an electoral process. So one wouldn't know whether is it a coincidence, is it conscious, deliberate positioning or effort to create a perception on this situation that we are going into of elections. That's why I'm not able to make comments now. But down the road, after
what do you smell? Because
I wouldn't want to rush into conclusions. I really want, by the time I make a comment, to have fully understood the trend itself, even to see the manner in which some of these operations are conducted. I will need a few more months to have a full understanding of this, and therefore I can give a more informed judgment over the issue.
Okay, but maybe lastly on that, if hypothetically it were true and the UPDF is investigating its own, doesn't that shine a ray of hope in your heart that the UPDF is now better an entity? If they say, yes, maybe these things are fabricated.
We also have to wait for the outcomes of that investigation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, General Gregory Muntu. I'll read some of the messages here as we come to the end of this conversation. Musinguzi, you say, why should we have a national insurance health, and why should we have a national health insurance policy yet we have public hospitals? I think instead of insurance, we need to strengthen these hospitals. What do you think about
The two are not in a conflict. Because in the first place, you can't have a national health insurance policy unless there's infrastructure even for delivery of health services. The question is it free services? Do we have the capacity to give free drugs on a national scale? Also, considering that the population is going to keep on increasing, you have to do the mathematics of that.
Okay.
First and foremost, before you determine which direction to go. Because there are countries which pretend that they are giving free medical services and you find there are no drugs. There's no equipment.
Yeah, okay.
But two, even when you have the infrastructure, the question of having a national health insurance has nothing to do with having hospitals. Actually, to apply it, you need to have hospitals, you need to have doctors, you need to have drugs. The question is, are they free?
Okay.
Because national health insurance ensures that, because out of 100 people, at any particular given point in time, you may find only 20 who are sick.
Yes, sir.
80 are okay. So the monies which are paid in by the 80, which are not utilized, cater for the 20. And those 20 don't pay full service. If they are, for example, supposed to pay 10 million because of the health insurance scheme, they are paid for. So you can have a national health insurance scheme or decide not to have it and say the country will pay direct so that anybody who gets sick can go
to the hospital.
Go to hospital.
Yes.
So you have to do the mathematics and find out whether the country has capacity to do that.
No.
So that's what's his name?
He is called Musinguzi Derek.
And he should look at countries which already do that. In Africa, there is Ghana. I think there is Rwanda.
Yeah, Rwanda also has an
Kenya has a mixture of both. So we just need to make a study. But our conclusion is that we need a national health insurance system that many people can't afford.
In Uganda, you realize how tedious the problem is when you have someone in hospital.
Yeah, I know.
Very, very expensive.
Many people die who shouldn't die.
I had
because people can't afford to get money to pay for them.
But the thing is, even those that we think have the capacity
for example, to have a CT scan can cost, in areas where they are, can cost at times 300,000 upwards. Or many women who cannot deliver naturally, they do cesarean section. And there are different rates. There are places where you find they are required to pay about 500,000. Some other cases about 800,000.
Yes, sir.
So if the person doesn't have the money, what happens?
It's a question I cannot answer as well. But,
no, that's what should guide, what is his name? To investigate this thing in depth.
Very, very true.
And contribute to debate wherever he is engaged in an issue of whether to have national health insurance or not. If he belongs to any party, to see how to influence which direction that party should go, because that party is in power. Of course, the national resistance movement, which is being in power, had the intention, but they don't have the will and the capacity to implement it.
Yes.
And also, for it to be successful, for any government which tries to implement it, you must deal with the culture of corruption.
Yes, sir.
Because a national health insurance scheme is something that can be heavily abused if it exists in an environment where there's no discipline.
Yes, sir.
And where there's no strictness in terms of how institutions are run, to have clear and robust investigative services so that even where there's abuse, the person who's been involved in the abuse is detected, is investigated, and is punished so that nobody else abuses the system.
Okay.
Because even when you want to apply it, there must be absolute discipline around its application. Otherwise, it can become a big area of abuse. We have even seen some of the developed countries where there is heavy abuse of insurance, even when it is not national, even when it is private insurance, where it is heavily abused. But we've also seen countries where there is discipline, and you find in terms of health, no citizen is worried at all. Because they know the moment they fall sick, they'll be taken care of.
Wow, let's wait for that, Uganda. General, there is a question here, and I have reiterated this question here before as we are asking Muntu, but Misika Ivan brings it and Musisi Dickens. Thank you so much for tuning in. He says, this is Ivan, he says, hello, General. While reviewing recent political developments, I noticed that various political parties have been working individually to challenge the ruling party. I understand the desire for each party to maintain its identity, but what plans your party may have for the collaboration with other? But I'll also intertwine it with Musisi. Musisi says, General, ahead of this 2026, are you, our opposition leaders, progressed yet towards a single candidate against NRM? What are our chances in this election cycle? So the question is the question of unity.
We have always been open since our launch as Alliance for National Transformation.
Maybe as you start, start on that. Let me also intertwine it with what Stanley Nasasira says. He says, I would like General to talk about a divided opposition because this is now becoming the greatest strength of NRM. In my opinion, it is victory for NRM when an opposition party produces another opposition party than opposition party losing members to join government. So 3 people, all of them, plus what I've also talked about this before, they are all in tandem that there is a need for unity. You can start.
First, unity does not mean everybody being in one thing. You can be in one party, but actually operate as if you are 2 parties. You can be divided even when you are in the same vehicle as a political party. You can, however, be separate but united. I get a feeling that people don't see, many times seem not to see that difference. You can actually belong to 2 entities but work very, very closely together as if you are one. But you can be within one party and you are fighting all the time like you are enemies. That's not unity. So our understanding of unity is when we agree on a common purpose, common objectives, even when we are separate, working around those. And we've been open as Alliance for National Transformation. And the beginning point always is how do you conduct yourself? And we've been deliberate, conscious in that. That's why, for example, we are not in conflict with any opposition party at all.
Which should not be surprising, really.
Because it's deliberate, it's not by accident. Because we know that being able to work together effectively around common objectives, common purpose, once you agree on them, it takes restraint on each side, takes discipline and focus. We've been building those in ourselves, and we are cohesive because our internal methods of decision making is that we build consensus. And then you move together. So, in that regard, we are confident, even as we engage with other political entities. We've been open. We indicated when we were starting as Alliance for National Transformation that we will not start any initiative ourselves because we wanted to focus on building our party, to be strong internally, and also to build it around the country. We have succeeded in the first objective, building cohesion in the organization, being disciplined, being focused, being consistent, being resilient. In that, we have succeeded. In spreading all over the country, in the 2,000 sub-counties, in the 147 districts, in the 400 constituencies, yes, we have not fully
No, but even
we had resource constraints.
Yeah.
But again, that's something we knew was long term. We'll keep at it. So, and in the process, we kept on engaging with the other political organizations. And we are still open. So the success of it can only be seen when it happens. If it needs success,
you are one of the most senior
will be seen
opposition
publicly.
leaders we
Yes,
have.
yes.
So, as the Holy Book also says, that it's the hearts of the fathers that turn to the sons.
yes.
Why is it that General Muntu is not reaching out to Kyagulanyi to say, Kyagulanyi, we need to work here? Why is it that General is waiting for Kyagulanyi to come to him?
No, initiatives. We didn't say because you see, an initiative has to be led.
Why don't you lead that initiative?
No, the point was, when, like all the things I've told you we have succeeded in, they don't fall like rain. You have to work on them. And to us, they are very, very important, even when you read the point of working with others. Why? Because we know that for whatever you build between 2 or 3 groups, 3 parties, the strength of what you build must be dependent on the strength of the entities that come together. Because if you are weak organizationally, out of weakness in organization is not going to give you strength. 2, you have to build stability within the organization. A 4-legged chair or table can't be stable unless all the 4 legs are firm. If you have 1 or 2 legs unstable, the chair will be unstable or the table will be unstable. So for us, we concentrate on building stability in the organization and ensuring that we have organizational skills and capabilities inbuilt within the organization. And then, because we said we are new, so any party which has any initiative will be there. And there's no party which has ever invited us and we don't come. We go, we discuss, we give our own advice, we give our own proposals, which direction to take. And these engagements have been continuous. Only that we don't go out pronouncing them. We have been engaged in quite a number of initiatives where we have been invited by other parties.
General, one would say...
the outcomes of which we cannot rule out whether there won't be any cooperation. We cannot rule it out. There is still time. So by September, if there is success in any 1 or 2 initiatives, they'll come out.
Some people think...
We never want to excite the public, by the way. We never want to just say things.
People think
unless
that
we know
there is no opposition party.
And we have built it successfully.
There is no opposition party that has the capacity to galvanize support in the entire country of Uganda, holistically, especially in the opposition. And even some say that even if you united, the capacity would be there, but it would be minimal. So aren't you outrightly lying to Ugandans that you are entering a political arena? That means you're just participating. You're not willing to win.
Edgar, you may not have been following.
I have been following.
I am telling you that we cannot dismiss the possibility of there being 1 or 2 or 3 parties or 4 cooperating. Right? The only way we deal with things in our situation is we only work towards a certain end state. Once we reach that end state, then we can come out and say, this is what we have been cooking.
Yes, sir.
We always avoid pronouncing. You have not even peeled whatever you are going to cook, and then you are giving intentions. Say, we're going to cook this, we're going to cook that, we're going to cook that. Suppose you don't serve that. But when food is ready and you're ready to serve, then you can ask people and say, come to the table, dinner is ready. It's
been 30 years. I think it's been 30 years, and Ugandans are saying, when do these people, these men in suits, because I think the Ugandans down here are united. The problems they face are the same. But they are seeing different caravans, which are supposed to take them to the destination. This is purple, this is red, this is blue, and everybody's saying, who should we go with? So all they are saying is, but every time they and that is what has been happening. But every time we see that, we find that the ANT will bring more than 60,000 votes
Yes.
all over the country.
Yes.
NUP will bring the last over 3 million.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, when you look at these common denominations,
Yes.
they have actually divided you and have, if you were together, maybe you would stand a chance to even get more members of parliament.
That's what I'm telling you. We keep working towards it.
Okay.
When we succeed, it will become self-evident.
So that means we look at the whole.
If there is failure, like has happened in the past, it also becomes self-evident.
One would say that.
But at the same time, the society should not blame us. We are a reflection of what our society is. Because we are products of our society.
Society is begging you to unite. You have failed. And every time you ask that question to
Yes.
all opposition
No,
leaders.
but our character is rooted in our society. We are products of our own society. We reflect what our society is. Yes. The society should not peel itself off and say, oh, politicians are like this. We are a reflection of who you are. You should understand that.
I'll just hint on lastly what Chiseka Derek said, that
Yes.
this is a win to the NRM.
Yes.
Now, will you even be crying, saying that you were defeated or robbed of the election with these problems that you are having already as the opposition? Because it looks like, apart maybe from the Alliance for National Transformation, which also has some financial problems,
Yes.
all political parties have a problem. They are dividing, they have problems about each other. These ones are receiving money from somewhere. Will you even say that this time round, Mr. Museveni has robbed the election or has rigged? That's the word to use.
In spite of all those challenges we face, he still rigs the elections. I know that for sure.
General, thank you so much. David, as we come to the conversation, the conclusion, it's 42 minutes past the top of the hour. I have David Kalanzi. We are receiving General Muntu's messages loud and clear. I have great hope that this will become increasingly evident over time. This is the kind of politics we need, one that unites people rather than tearing them. Isingoma Mugisha Amoti, Julius, you say very articulate. Yeah, General is always very articulate. Then Honorable Robert Romushana, when is he joining the National Unity Platform? Mpanga George Williams says, we love General Muntu at Nope. He is a very smart guy. Anything that you want to say on that particular issue? When are you joining the National Unity Platform?
No, we work closely together.
Okay. Hello, General. What plans does the ANT have for its youth wing, given that predominantly given the predominantly youthful population? Thank you. I think this will be our last question for the day.
We have our youth wing, and at every level, in every branch, village, parish, sub-county, where we have like 23 members, 7 are women, 7 are youth, 11 are central. And then it builds up the national level. And then we have branches in institutions. Now, we have not fully done that up to 100% in the whole country. But it's a continuous process. Now that there's an electoral process which has intervened, we halted that exercise. We're going to engage in elections. If it's the will of God and we take power, it will be much easier to do that.
Okay.
Even if we don't take power, it's a continuous exercise that we must engage in to ensure that we have a branch in every village, parish, sub-county, district of this country. And it is not just simply having branches, but also have men and women of character being the dominant in all those levels until the national level. Because we want to build a vehicle of good governance, so that even those of us who were the pioneers, when we bow out of politics, that we leave a party which will outlive us.
Wow.
That's why we're building an institution. We're not building any individual at any level.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank all the people who are giving us support. We'd like to call upon all Ugandans who believe in ANT. Even when you weren't inclined specifically in politics, but as a way of sacrifice for 5 years or 10 years, engage as a way of building a critical number of people who want to do what is right, who want to do things in favor of our communities, in favor of our country. Right now, as we speak, the balance of forces is tilted in favor of people who simply are driven by self-interest rather than country before self. Yes.
Thank you so much. I was going to request you to give your parting shots, but it feels like you've
Yes,
given
I did,
them.
I did.
Thank you so much. But for me
Thanks
to
a lot.
just thank
Yes,
you
yes.
for giving me the opportunity. It's not
My
the first
pleasure.
time. And I also want to reiterate that in my time of asking a couple of questions to different politicians, I have deduced that the mindset of the youth in the Alliance for National Transformation is different. It's very, very different. So I would like to commend you for that particular job, and also wish you luck. Are you coming for president, you as an individual, under the Alliance for National Transformation?
As an individual, I have the intention, but also have to wait for certain processes within the party itself. I don't want to jump ahead of the party.
Okay.
I have to wait for certain processes.
All right. But do you think, is there anybody that can beat you when it comes to that presidential flag?
Well, I don't know.
I don't
But
think
there's a
there is.
time when people didn't know me. Now they know me.
Don't they fear
there are
to-
other people whom they may not know, whom they will know.
But don't the young people fear to stand against you? Isn't there a silent policy of not standing against the general for president?
We will keep on building an internal culture where people will not be fearful.
Okay.
It will be it's by design. It will be deliberate. Maybe the only problem is that now there is total chaos in the political environment.
Yes, sir.
The behavior of the sitting regime actually is affecting parties in ways which you cannot understand. Opposition parties have to be very, very careful, very cautious in the manner in which they conduct even their own party activities. And the population needs to understand that, because we have a regime whose intention is to completely dismantle all parties. And one of the ways they use, one of the tools, is infiltration and internal subterfuge. So parties have to be very careful. And in protecting themselves, there are times when they may do things in different ways than the ordinary known ways.
Yes, sir.
A very, very complex situation, because I know that the regime has schemes of how do they infiltrate parties and influence them from within. So if a party doesn't have the skills to apply in a situation of this nature, you can easily be taken over.
Wow. Sad indeed. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, thank you to the Alliance for National Transformation for this opportunity yet again to host Gregory Mugisha Muntu, founding member of the Alliance for National Transformation, former president and also presidential flag bearer, but also former gallant CDF of the land. I reiterate that he was one of the youngest CDFs this country has ever got. So it's not every day that you find a 29-year-old become a CDF of an army. He was one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We shall see you again next month. I will not be here, but there will be another person. At least there is democracy in choosing who asks you questions. So another person will be here, but on my behalf, thank you so much for tuning in. We shall see you again next month in the last Friday of that particular month. I had Manzi here, and of course special shout outs to the Alternative Uganda that is hosting us this evening. From the entire team, God bless you and good evening, Uganda.